All right, so good morning again, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to go ahead and get started. Just so that you know, I have muted you all, but you will have an opportunity at the end of the webinar. If you would like to ask any questions, you can do that through the chat feature. So just to give you a heads up on that. So my name is Carrie McClellan. I'm the Outreach Manager for ElderHelp, and I am honored to be here with Scott Pirrello, the Deputy District Attorney's Office with the Elder Abuse Unit. So we're excited to have him joining us for this important topic, and we'll go ahead and get started. So just a little bit about ElderHelp. Our mission is to support seniors who are still living in their own home and wish to remain there, to help them do so successfully. And we have been serving the San Diego community for over 45 years, and during that time we have supported over 221,000 seniors and their families. That is through direct services as well as information and referral, which we provide a lot of assistance to those individuals on a daily basis. So we provide all of our services with the end goal of helping seniors to maintain their independence with dignity and making sure that they are able to age successfully in their homes. So we have a variety of services. Many of our programs are provided by volunteers who are out in the community every day, supporting those individuals who may not have other family members in the area or may not have a social support. So we couldn't do what we do without our volunteers. And we really aim to reduce social isolation, increase access to healthcare, and improve overall quality of life. So again, it is my pleasure to introduce Scott Pirrello. He is the head of the Elder Abuse Prosecutions for the San Diego District Attorney's Office and has been a prosecutor for 13 years. Since 2009, Scott has been assigned to the Family Protection Division, where he spent several years prosecuting a variety of family violence cases, including elder abuse, domestic violence, and child abuse cases. Scott thrives when working with the victims of family violence and has more than 40 jury trials to his credit, including cases involving murder, sexual assault, domestic violence, elder abuse, 3 strikes, and others. Scott is an expert in elder abuse enforcement, prosecution, and on the multidisciplinary team approach to elder abuse within a county framework of agencies. So welcome, Scott. Thank you so much for being here. And I know that whether we are volunteers, whether we're family caregivers, senior service providers, or community members, we're going to learn a lot from you today.
Thank you. I appreciate part of that multidisciplinary team approach is working with agencies and organizations like ElderHelp, and it's great to have so many partners in our community. So thank you, all of you out there. We are all part of the same community. And have chosen a field to advocate for elders, and it's really a pleasure to come out and spread the message and the information that we get at the district attorneys and take it out into the community. So the agenda for today in the next 45 minutes or so is to talk about some of the common elder abuse dynamics that we see and that are kind of a force working against us in our enforcement and prosecution of elder abuse. I want to talk a little bit about the role of what a prosecutor does, and then I think the most practical information that we can provide to you all for yourselves and for any elders, either in your family or any clients that you're currently or in the future going to be caring for, is what to look out for in these with scam prevention, because this really is becoming the scourge of our day right now, are these scams, and we're going to talk about how big of a problem that is. So we all know that as of a couple of years ago, we have a new district attorney in San Diego, and we're really lucky to be in a county. Summer Stephan has been a career prosecutor, and she really is focused. Elder abuse is one of the pillars of her entire agenda. So it's really great for all of us in this field to know that we have the support of our elected district attorney. And one thing that Summer says when she's out in the community, which I just love and really resonates, is this quote that you see, which is, "Our civilization will be judged on how we treat our youngest and our oldest members. And I think that's probably why all of you have also chosen this field, because elder victims, elder community members and citizens are more vulnerable just by the nature of being at that phase of their life. And they do owe, or we owe them as much as we can to protect them and to keep them safe. So it's really great that we have a district attorney in San Diego that's so focused on these issues. That being said, a mentor of mine always told me to put this slide in. This is my disclaimer that the views expressed by me are not necessarily those of my office or the elected district attorney, but I don't think I'll say anything too controversial today. So here is the tip of the iceberg, and I love this slide. It really shows the monumental problem that we are facing, which is below the surface in this photograph. And this photograph is based on the best research we have, even though you can see the year 2011 is a little older, but the source of this data is the Weill Cornell Medical College in New York out of Presbyterian Hospital. And they continue to be really the leaders in the research. And just try to absorb what this slide is telling us. And if you've been working in this field, you've probably heard this data before. But what it's telling us is that for every one case of elder abuse that we know about, and the we includes all of us, everyone listening, prosecutor's office, police agencies, medical staff, hospitals, county agencies like Adult Protective Services. So that's a pretty big we. For every case that we know about, 23 additional cases will never come to light. And that's really staggering, because if you could picture anyone that you know or have come across that's been a victim of elder abuse and think how sympathetic they are, and just picture in your mind 23 other people just like them in their 70s, 80s, 90s, with all the emotional trauma and physical trauma in some instances that they've suffered, that we don't know about that yet, that they're suffering. It's really, it serves as a call to arms. And the most recent data by the Cornell Medical College is that that number could be as high as even 1 in 44 people when it comes to financial abuse, especially in light of the prevalence of these new scams that we all are hearing so much about. So that's the call to arms, that we need to raise awareness. We can't just assume that everyone's doing such a great job with elder abuse now because you see it on the news. There's still so many victims that are suffering in silence. So why is it still so underreported? It really is the dynamic of fear, shame, and embarrassment that our elder victims are feeling. And they're terrified, and that's why they're in the shadows. And it could be for a number of reasons. And the dynamics change if you're talking about a victim who's being victimized by a family member, the shame and embarrassment that their own children or grandchildren are stealing from them or physically hurting them. And even in where this victim's a stranger, or when they've come from abroad, maybe one of these international scammers, there's an embarrassment that if I broadcast to the world that I've been victimized, if I pick up that phone and call 911, that I'm signaling to the rest of the world that I can't take care of myself anymore. And that's a real strong dynamic to overcome. Of course, when the perpetrator is someone close to the victim, you can imagine that often there are threats that accompany the abuse, which is, don't you dare pick up that phone and report this, because you'll go into a nursing home, or you'll be left alone, or if there's a restraining order, you're going to be all alone. No one's here to drive you to your doctor's appointments. So these are, again, really strong dynamics. When the perpetrator is a parent, you have this feeling by the victim that they're perceived as a failed parent. Imagine going to the community, to your siblings and cousins, or your church or your temple and your book club, and telling them that my child has done something terrible, right? Everyone wants to talk about their children getting into college and becoming a doctor. No one wants to talk about the black sheep in the family who is abusing drugs and continues to steal from them repeatedly, or has become physical with them. So we have serious issues. The other issues that prevent us from sometimes prosecuting a case are the capacity issues of a victim. And that's something that takes skilled investigators and skilled prosecutors to overcome some of these barriers when we can. Often we cannot. So we're talking specifically about when someone with dementia is the victim of a financial case, for example, and the caregiver or child is saying, no, my mom wanted me to go spend, $20,000 and go on a cruise. And if the victim can't articulate that they did not consent, then that becomes difficult. And that is a major issue that we struggle with in the law, both in civil law and criminal law. So those are the dynamics of elder abuse. And then you wonder, Summer Stephan went on TV and quoted the Sandag figures from a couple of years ago, and they're staggering that we live in the safest county in one of the safest counties in the country as far as crime goes, yet I think the only category, there were a few maybe, but one of the only categories where the numbers went up the past few years are elder abuse. And we're still digesting why that is. And one reason is that the victim pool is growing. And we've all probably, if you're in the elder care community, you've heard of the silver tsunami, this term that we enjoy saying, but it really presents a good visual. And it's this tidal wave of elder population coming. And you see the question here on the slide in front of you. Every day in the USA, the number of people turning 65 years old is, and if you've got a number in your head, we'll pop the answer up and see if you're close. But yeah, 10,000 people a year. So that is 3.6 million a year. And I've read just recently the census numbers. California has the largest population of elders. So we don't have the largest percentage, right? Florida and Arizona and Nevada might have a larger percentage of elderly, but just in gross numbers, California, just because we're such a huge state, has the most people in this category. And if you see the growth chart in the population, it's really staggering. If you look at 2015 on the bottom and follow it up, and we're looking at population numbers, we're roughly in the 45 million category of people in the United States age 65 and older. And look where we're going to be in just 10 to 15 years. You're talking about doubling. So any problem that you perceive now in this community, whether you're talking about actual cases of elder abuse, but just the sheer population of potential vulnerable victims, it's frightening. And then, as you all know, the deficit in caregivers and home health care, where are we going to get the people to care for these doubling in population to care for these vulnerable people without some susceptibility, with lack of criminal background checks and all this. So it's really staggering, and it's important to understand every time you wonder, why isn't more being done to prevent this or to stop this? This is the problem in that, can we keep up? So again, it's a call to arms for all of us to keep up with this demand. So what is a prosecutor? I never want to take for granted that people know what a deputy district attorney does. My own family, I often joke, my own mother. You heard in the beginning of my intro, I've done over 40 jury trials, and occasionally one will make the news, and I'll send her the link, and she'll call me and she'll say, now, who are you defending in this case? And it's kind of comical for us DAs. So what does a deputy district attorney do? We are attorneys, and if you want to look at it at the most simple level, we work on the side of the police, but we don't have clients. When we stand up in court, as you've seen in Law and Order, is we say, Scott Pirrello for the people of the state of California, right? So we represent the people, and we are trying to hold people accountable for crimes that they've committed. So the police typically investigate a case, and when they determine there's enough evidence, they bring their case to us. And if we feel that we could convict someone beyond a reasonable doubt, then we file a criminal case against someone. So we kind of shepherd this case through the court process. And we do have victims, but they're not our clients. There are witnesses, and then victims are deserving of special accommodations, but they're not our clients. And that's confusing for some for some people. So we have the role within the law enforcement community. We're an extension of law enforcement. But again, one of the mantles of Summer Steffen's platform and how she is governing is through a prevention model. And that's why I'm out here talking to you all, is we want to prevent as much crime as possible. We don't get any pat on the back or rewards for prosecuting the most cases. You know, we want to work with ElderHelp, we want to work with caregivers, we want to work with everyone to come up with solutions to help our victims and keep them safe. So that's what our role is in the community.
Important one.
Okay, we're going to talk about scams, and this is really, anyone who has a cell phone here understands what I'm talking about, how big of a problem I'm getting. Just in the last few weeks, I'm averaging maybe 7 calls a day from a phone number that looks like it's coming from my next door neighbor. If anyone else is experiencing this, so the area code is the same and the first 3 digits are the same. And I've saw that this is known in the elder scam community as a neighbor scam. So just that they're masking the scam so that you think it's someone real close to you. So it used to be when the phone says, oh, the call's coming from Nigeria, you laugh at it and you don't pick up the phone. But now it doesn't say Nigeria, it says San Diego, and it looks like it's coming from names. So how big of a problem are there scams? And the question that I want you to think about in your head right now is, how much money do you think is leaving the bank accounts of elder Americans every year? And think of the number in your head. And now I'll show you the number, and it's staggering. And the numbers are across the board. Just a few years ago, they thought it was maybe $3 billion a year. This was a number I believe MetLife initially reported on, but now even the federal government is citing this figure in a lot of their literature. So $37 billion a year is coming out of the bank accounts of our parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, our neighbors. And so, as I said earlier, this is really the scourge of our time. And it's not enough that we're just seeing news stories on this. We have to really accept how big of a number this is, and we all need to get to work to start preventing this more effectively. Just think about San Diego alone. And I looked it up, we're about 1% of the national population. And so that's to suggest that a conservative estimate would be that maybe up to $4 million a year is leaving the San Diego economy. It's mind-blowing when you think about it. And so that's what we're going to talk about now, to give you some tools to recognize red flags for yourself, for the elders that you're caring for, and for you to take to the dinner table, to the community center, to take this message out and educate people. And I know I will give you some practical tips based on the most current data, right? This is going to be based on years of criminal prosecution of elder abuse cases of myself and colleagues locally and nationally. But more importantly, it's using the most up-to-date current information that's coming from the community. One of my largest frustrations as a prosecutor is that the amount of cases that I've prosecuted for scams in almost 10 years of doing elder abuse cases, I could count on one hand. So why is that, you're wondering? Remember, I'm a county prosecutor with the San Diego District Attorney's Office, so we're not going to Nigeria and Jamaica or India to prosecute people. And so, unfortunately, most of these perpetrators are coming from abroad, and there's very little historically that could be done. So that's why the prevention side is so important. We're trying to give ourselves the tools to go after people, and we're learning more. We're working hard to change that. We don't want to tell our victims in San Diego there's nothing we can do, but still, prevention is the best we can do. So I wanted to get the most up-to-date information. So a lot of this is from police reports that are coming in. Even though we're not prosecuting them, we're working so great with the San Diego Police Department, with the sheriff, with all the smaller local police agencies from the border, the northern border, the southern border, out to East County. and everyone's working together and we're trying to share information. And these are some of the most current scams and information that I want to tell you about. And so we're going to talk about some tips on how to reduce the risk of becoming a victim of one of these scams. So the starting tip is that I could look you in the eye and tell you that your grandson and your granddaughter, they're okay. Okay, I need to repeat it. Your grandson and granddaughter are okay, I promise you. And why do I say that? And we all probably know what I'm talking about, that the scam is been decades old, right? Someone gets a call that their grandchild is either been in a car accident in another state or another country, or that they're in jail. Something has happened, and it's funny and we all laugh at it, but I can tell you from reading police reports that this is still the most common scam that people are falling for here in San Diego. And it's mind-blowing because you think, wow, everyone knows about this. How could anyone fall for it? But the scammers are becoming more sophisticated every day, and they're tweaking their scam and because they're learning that people are wise to this. So it used to be that the grandson or granddaughter on the phone would cry and beg and plead, but now they're just on the phone for a second. And they end up handing the phone to their lawyer, who gets on the phone, who is a very smooth-talking, English-speaking person who says, okay, you heard your granddaughter, she's in a lot of trouble, she was in a drunk driving accident, she hurt someone, and we need to get her bail money immediately. So they're convinced, they're talking to a lawyer, they're not really focusing on which grandchild it was, or, oh, that didn't really sound like them. So they're evolving, the scammers. And again, this scam is becoming the most prevalent. Now, you also ask, how could someone fall for this? We hear from some victims afterwards, after they've been kind of jolted back into reality, and they'll say, I can't believe I fell for this. How did this happen? I've heard of this scam and I still fell for it. Well, I used to do these talks, and I apologize if you've heard me in the past say, the people that are falling for these scams don't have dementia or Alzheimer's. Their families would describe them as being sharp as a tack, and they're shocked that their parent fell for this. Well, again, I told you that the Weill Cornell Medical Center in New York is doing the most groundbreaking research. Well, they've come up with some research just in the last 2 years, and there's actually a name now for this condition, and it's so hot off the presses that I don't even have it in a slide, but I'm going to tell you what it is. It's called age-associated financial vulnerability. Age-associated financial vulnerability. You could Google it, AAFV. And they're identifying this as a public health crisis. And it's fascinating what they've uncovered, which is that falling for the scam actually could be one of the first symptoms of the loss of executive function. That could be a signal that dementia or Alzheimer's is a few years away. And so it's actually a medical symptom because it does show the loss of some executive functioning, that they're unable to process that there's a scam and that they're following the scammer's individual instructions on going to the bank, going to this store or that store to accomplish this. So look it up and Google it. It's really fascinating. And the corollary to that is that the research is showing that it's not just a financial loss. That, and those of you that have worked with victims of financial elder abuse, that this creates psychological trauma, and it does actually create a risk of death in our elder population. And again, the same organization is saying that people who are the victim of financial loss later in life, that it actually will hasten their death up to 3 times faster than people who have not been the victim of financial elder abuse. And it's really staggering. So that, again, it's so important. It's not just about keeping the money in their bank account. The elder victims end up spending the remaining years of their lives not trusting people, stressed with anxiety. There's a trauma. There's a post-traumatic stress, and if they're vulnerable to begin with, it's that much harder to deal with. So these are the tips that we can give you, again, based on our experience on how to prevent this. And the first one is that everyone needs caller ID. Now, very few people still use a landline, but if they do, if you're in a home and you're just caregiving for a few hours a day, if there's a phone in there that does not have caller ID, you have to get rid of that phone today. Everybody needs to have caller ID, and you can get them very inexpensively now. And the cell phones now, everyone should have the caller ID feature. And it's very hard and you need a lot of discipline not to pick up your phone, especially, I often joke and think of my own grandparents. If you're sitting home all day long and you're giving your children a guilt trip for not calling you, or your grandchildren, it's fun to joke, but really, it's hard for them not to pick up the phone. They're bored. They want to know who's calling. They're just a curiosity, right? But the bottom line is, if you don't know the name or you don't know the phone number calling you, do not pick up the phone. Just don't pick up the phone, and don't be afraid to hang up the phone. As soon as they say, right, as I pick up the phone sometimes, I think, oh, what if this is my child's school calling? I say hello, and they say, hi, Mr. Pirrello, I'm calling about Windows, or I'm from the Veterans Organization, or I'm calling from this or that. I just hang up the phone. If it's important enough, they will call back, they'll leave a voicemail. Let it go to voicemail, and then don't call them back once they identify themselves as being from an organization that you don't know about. Because once they have you on the line, and it might sound innocent at first, but they are very sophisticated, like I said, and that's how people are getting scammed, that they're not getting off the phone in time. So tip number 2 are deal with these organizations, which I've just listed on this slide: the IRS, Social Security, the police department, the sheriff, SDG&E, the district attorney's office. What do all these organizations have in common? Well, what they have in common are these are among the most common scams, that one of these organizations will call you, and the scam varies, but in essence, they're trying to create an emergency situation, right? The IRS or the Social Security Department is calling you to say that your Social Security number's been compromised, or you haven't filed your tax return, and I've heard it. I've heard the calls. They say federal agents are down the street. They're going to kick your door down and arrest you, or a warrant will issue for your arrest. You must pay this fine right now to eliminate the risk. And so they're creating an emergency, because people say, how could they not have called me, right? The son and the daughter. Mom, Dad, how could you not have called me? They're creating such an emergency that they don't have time to think. It's very smart, right? SDG&E, again, you haven't paid your bill in 3 months. You owe $3,000. We're going to shut your power down, and you're going to be arrested. The police agencies, they'll say, you missed jury duty, or you have a red light ticket. You haven't paid your ticket. A warrant's going to issue for you. We're coming to arrest you. So all these agencies have this, it's the same thing. There's some emergency and you need to pay a fine. And it might sound reasonable at first. It might be a $300 fine. Okay, they don't hesitate. Let me get my credit card. Once they have you on the line, they're not going to let you go. And often we find people, they send $300 or $400 initially, and by the time they realize they've been scammed and that they reach out for help, they've lost $20,000. That's a common number, tens and thousands of dollars. Here's the latest, which is alarming and probably the #1 red flag if you're providing caregiving for an elder right now, or if you just are talking about a family member and keeping them safe. Never purchase any gift cards at the direction of anyone to provide payment for anything, right? Just think about that for a second. There's no legitimate reason you would ever have to pay a debt with a gift card other than someone doesn't want, it's like money laundering, right? There's no paper trail. So you would never have to pay for anything legitimate using a gift card. Gift cards are for giving gifts. They're not for paying for things, because you could just write a check. It's real simple, but no one is processing that information when they're presented with an emergency. Now, years ago, we all knew that the scammers were getting people to wire money. Western Union. There was a major lawsuit of Western Union years ago, and Green Dot, all these organizations, they're not using them that much anymore. The new method, the predominant method that the scammers are getting their money, once they have you convinced that you owe the IRS money or the Social Security, this is what they're doing, is they're telling you to go buy gift cards. They're sending you to Home Depot, Target, Lowe's. They're sending you to major supermarkets. They'll send you to Amazon or to Google or to iTunes. And they want you to buy large denomination gift cards. Often it's $500 denominations. And then these scammers, who are likely calling from overseas, will get you to give them the PIN number on the back of the gift card. So within seconds of you purchasing this gift card at Home Depot, for example, you're providing that number to the scammer, and then they're wiping that money off the card. The victim thinks that they're holding a card that they're going to then send somewhere else, but the card they're holding is worthless. The $500 is gone. So never purchase gift cards. So this is a red flag, right? If you show up at a house of an elder and you see a bunch of gift cards out there, you need to really have a serious conversation, because people are not buying their, unless it's graduation time, they're not supposed to have $500 gift cards lying around, especially, to Netflix or Google Play. So, and what we know, remember those dynamics, the elder's going to deny it at first. So you need to politely and seriously talk to them. And if they're denying it, maybe get a hold of their children, talk to other family members, say, I'm really concerned because I saw all these gift cards. So you're looking for red flags. And then the other bridge you need to cross is, how do we confront them gently, because they're going to be devastated that they might be learning for the first time that they've been scammed, which is, as we're talking about, very traumatic. Tip number 4 is not to worry about international scammers, it's to worry about local threats, and that's, we see so many cases of elders, and it's heartbreaking when we have someone who has had an engagement ring that they've had for 50, 60, 70 years taken from them in the twilight of their life. These sentimental pieces, forget the money value, but the sentimental value is devastating. And we find from so many of our victims that they struggle to articulate and describe the jewelry to the police. And so a real simple thing that you can do to safeguard is, either if you're sophisticated enough to do it, but for all of us as caregivers, we can help out. Grandchildren can do it. Get the cell phone out and take a photographic inventory of all the valuables that someone has, so that you could immediately go to that album that you have and show the pieces that you're missing. And then as you become more vulnerable, and just by the sheer nature of requiring caregivers, you could have a very reputable agency that does background checks and everything else, but if someone's requiring around-the-clock care, you're talking about just a lot of new people in a house, and some people are opportunists. They see something lying around and they take it. So you want to have things in a locked drawer, and you want to have photos, and you want to think about maybe gifting it to the grandchildren before someone gets so old that they are not going to even watch family members enjoy it, right? So don't wait until it's too late to give it to someone else within the family. Tip number 5, with the advent of electronic bills, e-bills, and statements, our elder family members don't trust this still. And so a lot of people have mail that just piles up. We know this isn't scientific, but I think from my own experience with family members, the older you get, the more mail piles up, especially these huge, brokerage statements that are 20 pages long from Fidelity or wherever, and it just pile up and pile up. And so, have a shredder in the house, and we want the new shredders that really cross-cut and shred everything, because, there's still people that will dive into a dumpster behind an over 50 community looking for credit card numbers. So we want to shred everything that has any personal information on it. Credit searches, the next tip, are a real valuable tool just to know if someone is trying to access your credit. Often we get that phone call from our bank and it says, someone was at a gas station in San Francisco or South Carolina. And you say, oh, I haven't been at either of those places. But there's people that will test a card. They might just run it through for $1 somewhere. Or they might try to obtain your information and fail. If you obtain a credit report, it will show you any attempts to use your credit. So there are 3 agencies, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, and you can get a free credit report once a year from them. You can also just walk into your bank branch or call your credit card company. They can all help you get this information. But running a credit check at least once a year is a great thing. And then if you learn that there's something suspicious on there, then you know that someone might have your information. It's not the end of the world. It just means you need to be more vigilant. I subscribe to a monthly service. I get an email once a month and it says, you've had 5 people try to access. Most of the time it says 0, which then I say, okay, good, I'm in good shape. But once you know someone might have your number, or maybe you've been subject to one of these data breaches at Target or some hotel chain, it's smart now to have someone looking at your information, and once a month getting an email. It's reassuring to say, no one's looked at your credit this month. So definitely keep an eye on your credit history. Tip number 7, again, this is one that gets a lot of laughs because people know about this, the Nigerian lottery or the Canadian lottery. So yes, no one is ever going to win a lottery in a foreign country. And just because we've all known about this, we can't get complicit, because you'd be shocked, just like the grandma and grandpa scam, this is often one of the most prevalent and predominant scams. It's still going on, and it comes from email, it comes over the phone, it also comes locally. And especially now with the immigration issues to the forefront, there are several rings of defendants we know operating in San Diego. Some we've caught, some we still know about that we have not caught, that will go up to people within the immigrant community, largely Hispanics, or like in mid-city San Diego, they're going after Western African population, and they're walking up to people in parking lots and they're saying, I've won the lottery, but I don't have documentation. I'm illegal in this country, and so I can't go claim the prize. But if you help me pay the $10,000 in taxes, then we'll split the winnings. And so there's a compassion there, because the victim thinks, oh, this poor person doesn't have their immigration status in order, I'm going to help them. And there's a humanitarian aspect to it. And then they literally go home to the stash of money that they have been saving, and they give it to this person. We have victims who are losing tens of thousands of dollars. So it's something to be aware of and to talk to people about, to be aware of this, that it is happening right here all over the county in shopping centers, supermarket parking lots. So if someone approaches you, you just need to know, I'm sorry, and just walk away. It's a shame that we can't be so trusting of our neighbors, but the reality is there's people that they're really predators, and they're out there lurking. Tip number 8 is kind of a similar issue, but we are seeing a lot of our elder population being victimized by handymen and car mechanics. So we just want to make sure that handymen, contractors, and car mechanics are licensed. There is a great organization that you can check. So if you happen, again, come to a home and one of your clients is having her driveway paved or his windows replaced, get the information of the person that's providing the service. Maybe they're great, but you could go on the website, the Contractors State Licensing Board. They are like a police agency. They serve a lot of functions, but that's one. And they will, you could put that person's name and their license number in and check them to see if they have a history of grievances, or if they're not licensed. A lot of unlicensed contractors will give a fake business card that has just a random number on it. So we want to check. The other thing is, we've all had a knock on our door from friendly people wanting to, again, pave the driveway, fix the roof. never accept the person that knocks on your door. Maybe they're right. Maybe your driveway does need to be paved. So take their card and then make a few other calls. Get a few estimates. Never give a large down payment. It's actually a law that you cannot give more than 10% of the total job in a down payment. A lot of people don't know that. And so a contractor will say, we need to go out and buy all these supplies. You need to pay me $10,000 up front, and then they never hear or see from this person again. So beware, they target elder victims, and the car mechanics are not what you're thinking where you drive up to Meineke Muffler to get your car service. These are people that will approach an elder in a parking lot, again, of the supermarket, and say, hey, you have a few dents in your car, I can help you. Let me follow you back to your house, it's so hot out, and I'll fix your car for you. And they will steal money, they'll go into the house. So these are common threats and common cases that we see. So just be aware, there are a lot of trustworthy, and with Yelp and all these online ratings now, it's really no excuse not to double check vendors that you're hiring, especially when you're welcoming them into your house. I think I covered a lot of this in the last slide, so you can skip ahead. Tip number 9, you see Cupid. And this is really, again, when I'm in front of a live audience, this often gets the most giggles, but I can tell you that these romance scams, we're seeing the most devastating impact, both financially and psychologically. This is not a random thing that just pops up. These scammers, again, are very sophisticated and invest a lot of time and effort. Often there's a months-long relationship that is fabricated over Facebook or a dating website, and the victim thinks they've fallen in love, and the scammer presents himself as either being an international businessman or maybe someone in the military, so they're overseas at the time, and they are so in love, but they're working towards this reunion, right? They're going to come back to San Diego in 3 months, and they're going to be reunited and maybe buy a house together. And what happens ultimately is sometimes they even send flight information, and it's like, I'm coming back tomorrow, I can't wait, and we're going to stay at the downtown Hyatt and all this stuff. And then they call from the airport, right? There's been a problem at customs. I can't get through, I need $50,000 to pay the customs agent, because remember, they presented themselves as an international businessman. I've seen these. They're literally a developer, and they're building a skyscraper in Azerbaijan. And, they're so wealthy that they have a suitcase of money and they can't get it through. And so we've had victims reverse mortgage their house to get their long-lost love, through customs. And so it's really tragic. Often when the authorities, whether Adult Protective Services or the police or our office, shows up at the door of our victim to tell them that they've been scammed, they don't want to believe us, they're angry at us. So if you have a client, again, or you're at a senior center and someone at the table is talking about this new love interest, don't just humor them, right? You want to ask a few new questions. There are a lot of them, and they're lurking on Facebook. And what we hear, a lot of adult daughters might encourage their elderly mothers who are widows, and they think it's so innocent to say, hey mom, dad's been gone for a few decades. Why don't you just go on Match.com? You don't need to actually date someone, but you just find a companion, someone to chat with. And then within a day of them creating a profile, one of these scammers are on Match, they're on all these Plenty of Fish, they're all over these websites and Facebook looking for that new elder victim. So it's really scary. Tip number 10 is also another ring that we see operating here in San Diego a lot, and it's people that are stealing the wallets out of women's purses in shopping carts. And a lot of people are guilty of putting their purse right in that child seat compartment. And unfortunately, it creates a target for you. And people will, usually working in groups, while you're getting your produce, one will come up to you and ask you, how do you pick out a ripe watermelon or something like that? And their friend will come up on the other side and take the wallet out of the purse. So we tell our women in town, just, bring a clutch. Don't bring a huge bag if you can avoid it, or if it's not too heavy, keep it on your shoulder. Again, the odds of this happening to you are very slim. We want to have faith in the community and society, but just know there's people lurking and there's opportunists, so you just want to be careful. So the top scams, as we begin to sum up here, again, taken from the police reports, are of the last few months, are the grandma and grandpa scam. The other one that you need to know about is the IT, which is information technology, or the banking account scam. So it's someone that's calling you from Dell Computer or Microsoft, or maybe some mom and pop computer fix-it company, or they're calling you from Wells Fargo. Something's happened to your computer or your bank account, something's been compromised, and they need to help you secure, right? You have a virus on your computer, we need to help you. And usually they're trying to get either the IP address to your computer, and they'll do that saying that's how they'll get paid, right? Give me your IP address, and we can access your online banking, and then you can pay us. So something like that. Or they're telling you to, we're calling from Wells Fargo, give us your password, we need to change it immediately before they steal all your money. So that's a real common way that they're taking a lot of money from people. The IRS, SDG&E, I mentioned, law enforcement calling about an unpaid ticket. Facebook, there's the romance side, but there's also there are people preying on Facebook and LinkedIn, and they'll look at your profile and then pretend they know you. They'll mention, oh, I know your grandchild, Stacy, whatever. Or they'll actually mask one of your actual friends and contact you. You think it's your sister who's instant messaging you or direct messaging you, and it's saying, hey, this is awesome. I just made a ton of money using this link. Click on this link and do what they tell you because you can make a quick $1,000. And you think it's your friend or your relative that's contacting you, but it's someone who's created a false profile using their picture. So again, the intent here is not to scare anyone. We want to have faith in our community, in our society, but all these tips, it's really just in an effort to make you smarter as you go out into the world. So what's next? I mentioned the gift cards are the hottest trend. I can tell you, though, that the scammers are already wise to the fact that gift cards are being used, and so they're already pushing the envelope and evolving. And so the next way that they're scamming is through Bitcoin, cyber currencies, and cyber, what's it called? Why am I forgetting the term? But Bitcoin is the number one of these new digital currencies. And people are saying, well, I don't know what Bitcoin is, so I don't have to worry about it. They are walking elders step by step through how to set up a Coinbase account on their own computers. And then as you see in this news caption, that we actually have Bitcoin ATM machines popping up. They started out in some convenience stores on El Cajon Boulevard here in San Diego, but they're spreading. I believe Coinstar, that you see in supermarkets that used to be the ones that take your loose change and give you money. I see huge signs now accepting Bitcoin. So an elder theoretically could go to a machine, put $1,000 in cash in the machine, and then hit the address that the scammer's given them, and the money's gone. It is, in essence, eaten their money and sent it off into the untraceable world of the dark internet. So that's what's next, and we all need to be careful about it. You see here are the machines that are popping up. So that's what's next on the horizon. It's not the next thing, it's actually happening. It's happening right now. So just one more reminder for the caregivers. A lot of people don't want to go through the trouble, or they don't want to violate someone's confidence. Maybe it's real sensitive that you think a family member might be doing it, but just to remind you, here in California, and if you're not in California, most states now are adopting mandated reporter laws. So it's in the California Welfare and Institutions Code if you wanted to read, but any person who has assumed care for an elder is responsible for reporting physical abuse and financial abuse, just so you know, or any form of neglect. So just be aware of it, and it is within the California Welfare and Institutions Code. So I think the reporting number is next, or there's another. This defines the abuse, right? So if you even just have a suspicion that someone could be a victim of abuse, right? It doesn't. You don't have to know it's happening. It never hurts to just call Adult Protective Services and let them know that someone might be the victim. Maybe you see a neighbor and you know that their nephew or niece has gotten into trouble and now they've suddenly moved in the house. Just make a call and someone will check on their welfare. So Adult Protective Services is really our greatest partner, and we couldn't do our job without them. They're really just incredible, and they need all the help and all the resources that they could get. But this is how to report suspected elder abuse, right? If you see something happening right now, we want you to call 911, call the police. But if you think something's happening or you heard about something that happened a couple days ago, call and report it. This is the latest and most current Adult Protective Services reporting line, which you could call from anywhere in California or around the country, and it'll get you to a San Diego Adult Protective Services person. So I want to thank you for, again, the opportunity to get this message out. We know that prevention right now, currently, until the government catches up and figures out how to stop this tidal wave of phone calls and emails that we're all getting, prevention is the best piece. And on behalf of Summer Stephan and the District Attorney's Office, I wanted to thank everyone for the opportunity and to keep this call to arms going. We need as many of us advocates out there to stop this real scourge of our time, this elder abuse problem. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Scott. I think all of you in the audience, I'm sure, have learned a lot, as I have as well. I've heard many presentations in the past, but I always learn new things, and what we can do is help share that information with those who maybe aren't on this webinar. I will be sharing the link so that you can pass it along to anybody that you think could benefit from learning, your neighbors, your friends, your relatives, or those that you are providing care to. So I think that this is information that is best being shared so that everybody has that. Before we close out, does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask? And we will send the link, as I mentioned, and I have a couple more slides to share with you before we go, but looks like everyone is appreciative of the information. It's been helpful, and hopefully you'll share that along. If you do have any follow-up questions, my contact information will be at the end. You do see Scott has shared his contact information as well, so if you're not wanting to chat that with everybody who's in attendance, feel free to reach out to us afterward. And if you know of anybody who maybe wants to come and hear Scott again, we have an opportunity through the San Diego Caregiver Coalition that will be taking place in September. So this is the information. I'll include the flyer also when I send the link out for the webinar so that you can pass that along. But there will be several speakers that will be covering a lot of the topics that Scott touched on today. And it's going to be a great event for people to learn more about how we can prevent ourselves and our loved ones from falling victims of scams. And that will be Wednesday, September 18th. And the information is right there, and I will share that also. For those of you who are interested in joining ElderHelp for our next webinar, we have Dr. Kim Bell, who will be joining us on Thursday, September 12th at 11 o'clock. And September is Fall Prevention Awareness Month, so we will be having a topic that falls in a line with that, which is dizziness and vertigo. And she's an expert on that topic, and I look forward to hearing what she has to share with us. So if you're interested, let me know. And this is our contact information for ElderHelp. If you have any questions, generally speaking, you can feel free to email them to our front desk at elderhelpofsandiego.org. If you have any questions on our Employed Family Caregiver Support Program, or if you do want to sign up to receive all of our upcoming webinar information, my email address is listed there. And of course, our website, elderhelpofsandiego.org. If you go to our website and want to check out the topics, or if you want to find the link later on for this webinar, under the Solutions for a Living tab, you will see Family Caregivers. And if you go under that page, you'll see the whole library of webinars that have been in the past, as well as this one we'll get up soon too, so that you have access to that and feel free to share with anybody that you think could benefit. I'm just going to check to see if we have any questions. And it looks like let's see. Okay, so one question. What would you suggest is the best way to initiate a conversation with the senior about elder abuse without making them feel afraid or incompetent?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I often offer up myself in this experience, right? This is the perfect way to break the conversation so that someone doesn't feel confronted, is you tell them that you just were lucky enough to watch a presentation today by the district attorney's office, and you learned so much and you wanted to share it with them. And so you learned about, touch on some of the common scams and see the reaction you're getting from someone, right? You could say, I saw the district attorney and they told me that I should go out and talk to as many people as I could. So I think when you reference law enforcement, there's some legitimacy to it, and it's not just the overbearing child or parent. You know, you're not hearing that family voice. So you throw us under the bus if you need to. But yeah, I think just mention that you were lucky enough to see a presentation and you wanted to talk about some things you learned, and then ask them, has any of this ever happened to you? Have anyone ever asked you for gift cards, or have you ever gotten that grandma, grandpa call? If someone that you have a hunch actually has been victimized, like I said, there's trauma there. So you have to approach it kind of like an intervention. Get your siblings together, or like I said, if you're the caregiver, maybe you want to reach out to the children and tell them, I'm concerned. You don't want to just confront them with it, and you don't want to make them feel helpless or stupid, right? A child, their initial reaction often is, oh, Dad, how could you have been so stupid, right? How could you have done it? And obviously, if someone has Alzheimer's or dementia, you would never talk to them that way. But if you think your parent's completely competent, a lot of children are initially disappointed, right? You have to try to hold that in and just say, hey, I just read this article that this is happening to so many people that are of sound mind. And I just thought about you. I just want to talk about you because I know you have this big brokerage account. Hopefully you haven't made any transfers, or so you could approach it delicately, but approach it from a way that you've just become more informed on something and you want to pass on the knowledge to them.
That's a great suggestion. And it doesn't look like we have any other questions, so if you do, of course, feel free to reach out afterwards. But again, thank you so much, Scott, and thank you all for joining us today.